Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Art and Outdoor Life here with John. So, today I'm going to be painting a scene that's pretty close to my house, to where I live. Uh, I'll be painting a river out here called the Meremac River out in the Ozarks of Missouri. And my apologies, I thought I had the camera set up right, but I didn't. Anyways, um, okay, so I put on some Payne's Gray that I made, and I've already wetted the paper. It's 9 by 12 cold press, and uh, I am gonna go out and buy some actual Payne's Gray one day, but they don't come in these tubes, unless you go to an art store. And in Walmart, they don't. Payne's Gray does not come in any of the packages, the 12 or the 24 packages. And that's why one of the reasons I've been making my Payne's Gray since the beginning. And and there's one of my fur babies there. That little rascal there. Anyways, I'll be painting because out here in Ozarks and other places, it's not just the Ozarks. There are fabulous, incredible scenes, um, scenery, landscapes. I mean, they're everywhere, right? But out here, they're really fascinating. We have a lot of clay out here for our ground, and we have out here in Missouri in the Ozarks is a beautiful place. So the bluffs along the river, a lot of the rivers out here are incredible, incredible. One of the good things wherever you are in the world is if you're going fishing, it's all about nature too, right? It's not exactly about catching the fish. For me, I'm a catch and release guy unless I catch a lot of big fish. But anyways, it's all about nature, being in nature, and getting back to the outdoors and listening to the birds and all that. It's almost sometimes I want to just kind of beat my head a little bit because where you want to go plein air painting, and you want to do fishing at the same time, you can't do them both, uh, at the same time. Anyways, so what I'm trying to capture here are the bluffs and the river. And now, if you look at the sky, that's the Payne's Gray that I made. Okay, and I diluted it quite a bit. Okay, so I'm coming in with the river, and this painting, by the way, is from my memory, a place that I've been many times in a town called Bourbon, Missouri. Bourbon, Missouri, and this is the Meremac River. However, if you're painting along, you can paint you know, make any kind of background that you want and paint a river that's close to you. Um, so with the Payne's Gray, I was going over the river there. And if you noticed, I put more dark toward the right side. And this here is yellow ochre. What I did for my bluff there was burnt sienna. And I came down, I did another line of burnt sienna mixed with some raw umber, and then raw umber below that. Um, and uh, I wasn't going to put this video. I put every video I do out, just about. Just about. I mean, and so here I am. I'm just kind of drying it with a paper towel because it was very wet. Just tapping it, tapping it lightly. So this is the second video here that I'm using a hair blower on because it was very dry or very wet. And I didn't blow a fuse on the first video I did recently with the hair blower. I'm in my front room, so in my studio room, I can't get away with that. Okay, so I know it looks like the Southwest somewhere, and out west, like the Red Rocks and all that. The truth is, we have a lot of. They're not exactly red, but they're pretty close to it. We have red clay out here. We've got beautiful bluffs. And by the way, again, this is from imagination. I put myself in Bourbon, Missouri, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm looking at the shoreline, and this is actually kind of personal to me, because my grandfather is actually buried right above the bluffs there. So that's all I'm going to say about that. So to get the effects of these bluffs, and that's raw umber there, I used a card, and it was wet enough. I was able to use the card to scrape in the big rock formations. And, with the bluffs, when you look at them, they got layers and layers and layers, and that's one of the very cool things about bluffs, especially over a river, is the different layers and colors. Oh, excuse me. My apologies. And that they get very tall, very tall. So, and when the sunlight is hitting them, they're white, but it's the real color around them, right? Okay, so here I'm using some green, and because there's a lot of trees on the bluffs. There's there's actually shrubbery and trees, not only on top of the bluffs, but also like on some of the ledges of the bluffs, you'll find, and then you'll find a lot of shrubbery and trees there too. Right now, this is only the beginning of what is. I thought it was a good painting. I felt really good about this painting. Okay, down by the shoreline, I'm putting in a little bit of blue, ultramarine blue. Everything is about contrast, color contrast, right? So we're looking at, the contrast between colors next to each other, the values, and, and each color, each tone alone. And that's a lot to think about. But I painted this very loose. Very loose. It might not look like it, but it is very loose. And, I could have came back and painted it again and again and again. And I was just like, after looking at the video, I was like, this is fine. I didn't get the video square on the paper like I would like to, but that's fine, you know. So I'm coming in here with more Payne's Gray. This time it's darker. And I'm just kind of filling in, trying to get the depth, okay, the contrast that I was saying. And the sky, look at the sky now. With the dark contrast I got there compared to the sky, and that sky is actually Payne's Gray, a very light Payne's Gray. Okay. And yeah, I'm just trying to fill in the grain of the paper, you know. Use the grain, the grain is there for a reason, you know. It's there to hold your watercolor. It's there to absorb the water. So here with some lemon yellow, I'm throwing, and you probably see me do this in some of my other videos. I like to put in yellow over the green. And I like putting in yellow over red too. Not all the time, but sometimes I do. And so working on this forage here and these trees above the bluff, on top of the bluff. And the angle in which I was painting this, I was like, okay, yeah, there is a place there you could park. And it's not sandy like that, but I wanted this to be kind of sandy, like a beach. It's not a beach at all, but I thought this would work out pretty well. So here I am. I'm going over it with some burnt umber, and then I'll come back with it with some yellow ochre here, and give it more of a sandy kind of feel to it. You know, I'm not talking about, the white sands of the Gulf of Mexico or, just and a very wet sand, Anyways, but the focal point here, what I was trying to get across was the bluffs and the river itself. And that sky, it's kind of overcast type of day. So here I am with some ultramarine blue. And, there are a lot of cedar trees out here, and there are a lot of pine trees out here. Mixed with oak trees and sassafras, and there's a lot of different kinds of trees out here, and especially over there. So I thought, well, I could put in a few pine trees, or cedar trees, and then with the fan brush, or as I call them, the turkey tail brushes. Put a little foliage there in between the foundations of the rocks. Because there is, in reality, there is a lot of foliage. Not on every stretch of the river or, what have you. Now, here is a very dark green. I used two shades of green here, and I wanted, to kind of mix it up with the blue and the yellow. And so, and the fan brushes, they're amazing. I've said it before, and I'll always be saying that. I love fan brushes, along with the hake brushes. Look at that. I mean, look at see, it brings out, and that's going over to ultramarine blue. I'm mixing the trees right on the paper here. when you put the yellow right over the blue, you're actually mixing on the paper, you know. And I like doing that because it's spontaneous and because, you know, it gives different effects. It's not like you're putting in one kind of green across everything and, you know, you could lift up the paint with the actual paintbrush and you can spread it around. So that's what I do. I do that in a lot of my paintings, you know. And I'm just kind of going along here. That's a lot of yellow there, you know. But it gives it a very nice contrast. I like contrast. I do. If I don't, you know, for this scene, because it's very scenic, you know, and I wanted this painting to be scenic. I didn't want to overdo it, and you know, I didn't plan it. I had it in my mind, like I do it. Excuse me, with almost all of my paintings. I show up and I'm like, okay, I want to paint this. I want to try this, and then I hit record, and I do that. So I thought I'd put a tree down below and make that a very tall tree, compared to the bluff. You know, the bluffs go way up high. In many cases, they do. And so with some raw sienna, or raw, my apologies, raw umber here, and a flat brush, I thought, okay, I'll just put a little tree trunk or whatever, just a tree in there. And I put some on the ground there, which is basically a beach. The only thing I made up, you know, I didn't want to put a bunch of trees on this side. So I'm adding some green there. My apologies about the reflection of the light coming onto the painting. You know, like I said, I thought I had it right when I hit record, and I don't know, I might have bumped it or something. I don't like the glare when I do videos. Sometimes I can't help it though. So I'm putting more yellow ochre here at the bottom to kind of give it some dry grass effect there. And a little bit at the bottom too of the bluffs, you know. Just kind of adding color basically, you know, making it a colorful scene because it is very scenic, like I said, very colorful. And I thought, you know, I'll define this tree a little more. Maybe, you know, some of the sunlight is shining down on that tree. And so I put a little yellow on it. And I'm just kind of going with the flow here. You know, one of the problems I deal with, I don't call it a problem, it's just something I deal with, is sometimes I don't know when to stop. And, you know, sometimes it's good to stop, and sometimes it's good to keep going. It's just a matter of how you like to paint and who you are. So here with some Chinese white watercolor, I wanted to lighten up the river. You know, I kind of wanted to match it with the sky. And the sky is a Payne's gray, a very light Payne's gray. It's watered down. You know, it Payne's gray that I make. I did a video. You can look it up if you're interested in how I make my own Payne's gray. So there's that, and I had to put it in the tree trunk again because I went over it with some raw umber here. And I wanted to try something very different here. Okay, this is my original idea was to put in a plant. Yeah, I'm just going over this with some raw ochre, yellow ochre, just to kind of lighten up that sand a little bit. Okay, but for the last few days, I've been thinking about making an Alaskan mountain range or somewhere out in the Rocky Mountains, and then putting a small plane there in the sky. And I've never done this before. So I'm like, well, maybe I'll try one here. And this is just by chance because I don't draw things like this. I don't paint vehicles and nothing like that. And I'm very new at painting as it is. So I'm like, well, I don't know. I hope this works because if it don't work, it's not going to work. And I don't even know if it worked or not. And another reason I was like I was having fun when I was painting this. I mean, that's what it's about for me. It's about, for me, it's my therapy, right? And it's also, and part of that is the creativity, being creative. So, my first time throwing a plane in, putting a plane in, and I'm like, okay, well, it's a landscape painting with a plane, and it's either gonna work or it ain't, but and there are no planes out here that fly, that close to the water. But I originally wanted to put a plane in, like, around an Alaskan mountain scene, one of those kind of planes. Anyways, have a good day, evening, and night, and thank you. Sincerely yours, John. And please hit like and subscribe. I really appreciate that. Thank you again. Sign my name.